Yo, it has been a long time. I mean, that's an understatement. My name is K Murdoch. This is Harvey Newman. We come to you for the players on behalf of Proxima Studios. And I guess, like, just to start off, Harvey, because really, usually we have like an agenda of things to ton to talk about, but it has been such a long time that obviously the elephant, I hate cliches, but the elephant in the room is like, what the hell has kept us from doing this podcast more regularly over the last 6 months? So I will defer to you as the studio head to start us off as far as what you've been up to.
Yeah. I lost you for a second there. All good. Absolutely. I think that it's actually quite interesting because it's been 6 months, but we 100% have been super busy at Proxima. Okay. So a lot of things have happened since. So, like, Kyle and I was just talking behind the scenes before we went live about, like, let's do a recap of what has happened for the last 6 months, because I think it's needed for everybody that actually tunes in. By the way, thank you so much to everybody that has been telling us constantly that they really enjoy the podcast. This is a good, like, gaming podcast, and, like, lots of great feedback overall. So I appreciate that. Mm-hmm. And we've been, like, itching to kind of, like, get going again, right, Kyle? It's been every month. Pretty much, we've been like, let's do it. Like, and then something gets in the way. So, so basically, what has happened? We basically dropped, like, the last time that we did this probably was like beginning of December, or in December at some point. And then we dropped out teaser trailer. And then things went a bit nuts because people really enjoyed the trailer. IGN featured our trailer, and so did game trailers. The numbers kept going up in terms of views, lots of great feedback. People got in touch with us left, right, and center to kind of tell us how awesome it was. But then what happened after is that we realized soon after that we needed to start to work on the GDC, on the next beat of the studio, which is GDC. So GDC comes, so when was it, Kyle? I keep forgetting the month. Was it
GDC? Was April? March.
Completely off. So March, from January to March is not a lot of time for us to kind of like put together a really good demo so we can talk with publishers. And because we had the momentum of the teaser trailer, we needed to actually kind of like capitalize on that momentum to make sure that people could see our game in all its glory and could play it in all its glory and all that stuff. So, like, and we're going to talk more about it, but that's basically in a nutshell what's been happening. It's been like, gearing up to GDC and then the follow-up from GDC after that.
Yeah, and I'll say this, like, part of me kind of being on this podcast has been, it's been a learning on the fly. Like, this is all new to me. Like, my background is more, it's audio production when it comes to linear, not the interactive space, like video games. So going to GDC was something I'd heard about for years, probably for over a decade, but I never thought I'd have a reason to go. So it was a really cool experience to not only see you for the first time in over a decade, because last time I saw you, I was on the other side of the pond, as we like to say here in the States when it comes to visiting Europe. But also meeting Johnny, who was there too. Johnny, our composer for Proxima, as well as AK?
AK was there. Andrew was there.
Andrew was there. Yes. No. So it was really, it was it was a lot to take in,
Absolutely, yeah.
Yes,
it's insane. GDC is insane, but it's really good because what I find that GDC gives us, because that's the experience of GDC as you go, as just a developer, whenever you don't have your own studio, whenever you're not doing what we are doing here at Proxima, which is starting a studio from scratch. And if you actually go to a GDC or a Gamescom, if you work for Microsoft or Sony or one of the established studios, it's a much more chilled kind of like experience because you're there to enjoy the venue, but also speak with the fans of maybe the IP that you're working for. And when fans of the game actually go like, oh my God, you work on this IP, this is so cool, what do you do? Right. It's actually a really cool moment. But for us, it's different, right, Kyle? For us was meetings and stress.
Yes. And like you said, just trying to essentially do what I would say the vast majority of people there were either presenting stuff they had done or doing like us and trying to seek publishers and have meetings. And I mean, you've been through this rigmarole obviously this is my first time. So like compared to your other experiences of GDC, what did you think about the whole experience? Like, especially coming and representing a studio that you've essentially created.
Yeah, yeah, no, that's a great question. So, like, I've only been to GDC twice, really. I went to
Okay.
Gamescom a bunch of times, but GDC was the second time. The first time that I went was last year, also with
Oh wow.
Proxima.
Okay. I got you.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So to me, I have never experienced GDC as basically just like a developer, but I have experienced Gamescom, which is even bigger than
Mm,
GDC. And this is what I'm saying, that it's actually like a very comparable kind of like event in terms of like the experience as a developer. GDC is just mostly for developers, by developers for developers, and Gamescom is much more about the players, about
mm,
actually the gamers, right? And also the developers. There's all
right.
kinds of meetings that happen behind the scenes. But last year, when I went for the first time, my experience was very lonely, even though it sounds sad. But it was very lonely mainly because it was the first time that I was going to GDC, but also was the first time that I was representing any studio for myself, by
Mm,
myself. The team was
mm.
smaller. And you probably remember this, Cal, because you were actually kind of like still delivering audio last minute and putting the track
Yeah,
together.
doing the demo
But
up until your presentations.
yeah, absolutely. Like up to the day that I had to do the presentations, which is
Wow.
nuts.
Wow.
But it was stressful because it was both unknown, but also it was like exciting to actually be representing your own, right? Your own
Mm,
studio,
mm,
something that it's yours, which is really, really cool. This year, though, it was very different because I had you, I had Johnny, AK was there, and he felt not only was I more calmer because I knew
mm.
more or less where to expect, but also, I had the homies were there with me, even though there
Right.
was not many more people came with us. I wish we had brought everybody from
Right.
Proxima, but I felt like we were there together, and then we could basically talk about what happened the day before, what's going to happen the day after, what happened after the meeting, how do you feel? Those things were amazing, man.
Well, let's talk about like for what you can disclose, because I know a lot of stuff with GDC. Not saying it's behind closed doors, but I mean, obviously you can't disclose like the certain meetings and stuff we had. But what would like for you? Because I know your day was a lot. Your days, should I say, or that week was a lot busier than say myself or Johnny, because we were just taking it in primarily as
Yeah,
visitors, but for you who has been
yeah, yeah.
before, and being that you were the person meeting on behalf of the studio, what was your week like for the week you were there?
That's a great question. So it was so GDC. Here's what happens if you go there as a gamer or as a developer. Normally, you go to there's like about 4 or 5 different actually like pavilions that you can go and play games and
Mm-hmm.
witness, talk with developers and stuff. So definitely go
Yes.
if you can. So that's basically what people kind of like perceive as GDC. Whenever you see the IGNs of the world doing
Right.
YouTube videos about it, that's it. That you go to the floor, you see multiple screens and computers and people selling things. But there's another part of GDC which I was not aware, and I became aware last year, which is goes behind the scenes. It happens behind the scenes,
Mm-hmm.
and for everybody listening, you probably heard about like games being showcased behind closed doors, right? Like a studio went to GDC and they showcased their games behind closed doors, or they showcased the games to the media, or they showcased the games to publishers. But
Mm-hmm.
you never know exactly where those things happen. And I'm here to disclose where those things happen. Just like
Yeah,
spill the
yeah,
beans.
yeah. I mean, it's important.
But yeah, those things happen very often. It happen every single day of the week. So it goes from Monday to a Friday, and basically is most of the time is in hotel lobbies.
Mm.
So that's going to be Four Seasons and the Hiltons and all that stuff of the world. And basically, you go and you meet with the publishers. So sometimes publishers, the big ones, have rooms with like presidential suites and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes they have their own offices somewhere in a building. But one thing is true: when you are a humble developer like ourselves that don't really have a lot of like games published and stuff, you need to run from place to place all the time. So basically, my days were very much going from hotel lobby to hotel lobby, trying to make each meeting on time,
Mm-hmm.
and then basically going into like the lobby bar, or maybe if there are seats available, which a lot of the times there isn't because it's so busy, everybody's talking, lots of noise. You need to sit down with somebody that is normally the representative of the publisher, or is maybe the somebody that works internally for the publisher. It really doesn't matter. The person is there to look at your demo, at your game, and then assess if this is something interesting for the publisher. Each publisher has a roadmap, and they have like goals they want to do, and they said like for the next 5 years we're going to focus on this type of games or those type of games. So what you're doing really is basically saying like, here's us and here's our game. Is this of interest? And then if it's of interest, they'll go back and then they'll say, send us the demo, send us the information, the presentation, and then we'll discuss it internally. So then becomes a waiting game. But this happens after GDC, right? So the weeks after you send the demo, and then they'll actually talk about it. And weeks after that, they might come back to you with a positive or negative answer in terms of, is this going to be something for them or not? So that's basically what you're doing. The problem, the challenge here is that because of the noise, because of the stress, because of you only have about 20 minutes, maybe, if you're lucky, sometimes less, to pitch something that you've been working on for months, is not enough for you to kind of like really express or showcase the work that has been done. So you kind of hope that you've done a good enough job that people kind of go, this is interesting, right? So you saw as well, Kyle, when we went to the meeting that we didn't really had a lot of time, and we just had to find a place somewhere that we had to sit down and then pitch. And then thankfully by the end, the publisher, which shall not be named, just went, you know what, this is really interesting. I can give you, we will definitely need to pitch this internally and then see how it goes.
Yeah, I think that was the thing that really stood out to me, is that contrary to what I thought you were going to go in this like closed room that had like a big screen TV, would be like outfitted with like surround sound, so you could really like put your game, hook whatever you're playing it off of, a console, well, not console, but most likely a PC build or something like we did. And they would essentially, you'd have like the optimal place to show off all the sound and the visuals. But the fact that we were just basically meeting in a hotel lobby, it was refreshing in the sense of just like it wasn't as stressful, because I felt like all eyes weren't on us, but also it was stressful because it was like, shit, we did all this to make these other parts really, really awesome, but you can't even really get the full experience, So it can be a tougher sell,
Absolutely. But it's part of the business. It's part of the thing, the discovery process. Because to me, maybe this being in the scenario that you just mentioned, being on this perfect scenario that you can plug the HDMI and have all the bells and whistles and stuff, it happened maybe, I want to say, I might have pitched to about, I don't know, 40 publishers so far, maybe more, for 50. I don't know. It's been a lot so far.
And that's pretty standard.
That's standard, 100%. You just pitch to as many people as you possibly can that show interest in your game to see if it sticks. And then if you're lucky, you kind of like, you get a few answers back, and then you can maybe pick. But if not, then you just have to continue pitching, because you're looking for that money, but you're also looking for the right partner to actually come partner with you in this pitching. But the truth is, like, only maybe Microsoft, Sony, and maybe one or two other publishers had that setup that you mentioned right now. Everybody else is very much like lobby, right? Just open your laptop that you bring with yourself, do the pitching, hope that they're interested. That's another thing as well that gets you sometimes, is that they are all in the short like window, and they have like if I felt like I had lots of meetings, publishers had like 2 or 3 times as much. I met somebody like last year when I went, and he said, "You are my last meeting, thankfully, and I think this is my 65 or 70th meeting this week."
That's
or something
crazy.
like that. It was insane. Like, so how can you actually maintain attention and be psyched about stuff when you actually meet so many people, right? So you kind of hope to stand out amongst all the meetings that you have, and you hope that you have something special that they like. But yeah, it's hard, man. It's hard. It's part of the business. It's part of like, that's how it is. But it's hard for everybody out there that is looking to go to pitch their games to publishers face to face. Is hard, but it's definitely better than pitching online, 100%.
Well, speaking of that, like, keeping in line with like pitching to publishers, like we're in the next phase, like, of what you
Mm.
mentioned earlier. Like, we met with the publisher in person at GDC, we've sent off demos, and now it's just like playing the waiting game essentially.
Yep.
And just
Yeah.
and but what usually happens while you wait? Like, I know what we're doing. We're continuing to iterate off of what we have and press forward. Is that usually how it goes? Like, is that standard?
Not really. I don't think. I don't think so. You kind of have. There's different types of mentalities here, right?
Mm,
So like there's very much the studios that actually kind of like work incredibly hard. They pitch and then they wait until they go to the next phase. So there's basically starts and stops, because only when you actually receive an answer back from a publisher can you truly kind of continue developing. These things cost money, obviously. It costs time. So there's only so much time people have. There's only so much money studios have, especially when you're bootstrapping everything like ourselves. So normally, like a lot of studios, I won't say everybody, but a lot of studios just stop until they actually get a positive or negative answer. If they get a positive answer and they get somebody to kind of like pitch in, then at that point they'll actually gather again. Let's get to it, and let's continue the game that we've done. For us in here at Proxima, I think we're in a bit of a privileged situation where we are bootstrapping this,
mm-hmm,
but also the team is incredibly tight and also feeling the project. And we're doing
mm-hmm,
this out of passion, and we're doing this because we're genuinely feeling it. So because of this, the way like I prefer to do it and the way I pitched it as well to you guys, Kyle, is very much that we submit, we pitch, we do the absolute best we possibly can, and then we forget about it, and then let's continue making the game while
right,
we
right,
we wait, right? And if something positive comes along, great. Now we have the money, now we have the publishing, amazing, and we have the right partner. If something doesn't come along, at least we have progressed further in the game,
right.
and then we have more and more game and our ideas into the mix, right? Which I think it's good. At least it helps me to not be stressed out of my mind.
Would you say that this time that we're in, this pocket of time we're in now, where we're waiting but still iterating, and as you said, bootstrapping, is
Mm.
this usually the make or break time for games and studios as far as like continuing to move forward with the project? Or is this, I mean, you're a 20-year vet of doing this, so you're probably just used to it. But like, I'm very
Yeah.
honest about it and expressing like, man, this is all new to me. And even the waiting, like, I've waited
Yeah.
in working in media, like whatever project, there's always some kind of, especially I've worked on documentaries, and documentaries can take just as long as a game dev cycle.
Yeah.
Um, but would you say, yeah, do you think this is a make or break time for a lot of studios? Because some people just think they're going to magically go to GDC and land a publisher and that's it. And,
Yep. Agree. Yeah, I mean, it depends on the mentality. There's so many spinning plates, so many
okay.
variables on this situation. Like, so there's a bunch of stuff that comes to mind when you ask that question. So the first one is the following: like, you have to have the entrepreneurial mindset when you
Mhm.
actually are in this situation. So this is why I appreciate people like you and Johnny, because you guys have that like everybody in the team pretty much have that mentality. But like, you guys have this like, bootstrap kind of like vibe, because you guys came from the music industry, and this is kind of how it goes. Like, if you don't do it, nobody else is going to do it for you, and then eventually you get a deal if you can actually do it.
Mm.
And that is basically the attitude that I learned from working on my blog in The Word Is Born back in the day. It's very much this mentality, which helps a lot in games. It helps a
Yeah.
lot because what happens from my perspective is a lot of AAA developers like myself that then go into indie or start working on yourselves by yourselves. You start thinking that because you have the experience and because you have the knowledge and because you've been in the industry for so long, maybe certain things should be given because of the experience. And you should just say, I'm this person, I've done these things, therefore give me the money and I'll show you that I can do them again for my own. But unfortunately, things don't work that way, especially how the industry is right now. So part of that is basically like being like tenacious, right? Making sure that you humble yourself to the point that you just have to, even though you have the experience, but you have to humble yourself to kind of like be like, this is new, and I'm going to act like I know nothing, and I'm going to do the best that I can. So I think that's the first variable when it comes to building that studio. And then the make or break mentality then comes with the second part, which is very much that a lot of time goes on, a year goes by, 2 years go
Yes.
by. You
Yes.
kind of expect that the more you have in the game, the better the game looks, the more you have opportunities and people kind of going like, please, can we publish your game? But that's not the reality. That doesn't happen. So you kind of have to basically, once again, hustle and basically continue grinding, and just knowing that you are making the game for, we are here at Proxima, we are making the game for ourselves first,
Right.
and we are not making a game for a publisher. We're not making a game even for players right now. The way I feel
Right.
like I'm making this game for us as a unit, and then if we are all happy with it, and I think we came together and we love it, then hopefully gamers will love it as well. But we are not thinking about, gamers or publishers, or like we're thinking about, let's make this
Hmm.
amazing. Eventually we'll open it up to gamers, so we can see and hear their feedback, because that's important as well. But it's at least at this point, focusing on our own thing and just kind of like be zeroed in into what we want to do is what I think will make us go the long way, right? There's the side of the money, right, which we actually have to deal with at some point, which is normally with the thing that makes or breaks the studio. But as it is right now in the industry, we are in an interesting place, because back in the day, maybe 5 years ago or so, right now, I am pretty sure we would have money or we wouldn't have money. That's basically binary at that point, right? If you go 2 years, 3 years, we're building something and we don't have money, then maybe the things don't work out, right? Something is not right. And if we do have the money, then great. We're off to the races. Bob's your uncle. But now we are at the point that I feel like AAA is collapsing,
Right.
right? And like we are in this new world that indie is king, PC games are king, and I feel like people want shorter games built by smaller studios, built with passion and all these other things. So the variables never been greater and also the stakes never been greater, right? So I feel like publishers not are not sure where to go, gamers themselves are not too sure where we're going to go. And then studios like ourselves, we also don't know where to go. So for me, I feel like for us at Proxima, the only true road that we have is being true to ourselves and just doing a game that we enjoy. And then hoping that it sticks both on publishers and gamers, right? Hopefully it's the right time at the right place and it happens. So I don't think it's make or break for us right now. I feel like as long as we're having fun with this and as long as everybody's happy doing this, I think we'll be fine. I think it will be make or break if people start not enjoying it and be like, yeah, I had enough and I just need to go.
Yeah,
That's
I,
it.
I I can say honestly, because this has been a really cool learning experience that I feel like, I'm always telling you, like, profusely always saying thank you for giving me the opportunity, because this is a bit of a dream come true for me. Like, I've
Yeah,
grown up playing games, but I never thought I'd be making them. Like, I at one point, even in high school, I took like C++, and I was taking computer languages like Pascal and
you did?
Fortran. Yeah, yeah, way
I
back in the day. I
didn't
mean, I'm
know.
45, so I don't want to date myself. These are pretty antiquated. Like, I know C++ is still a thing, but no one uses Fortran or Pascal. But yeah, I
Right.
I quickly learned I'm into game development, but the side of like coding and stuff, I know it's a necessary evil, but it just that didn't really resonate with me. I'm more of a creative kind of right brain person and not so much left brain, but I appreciate, and I've had to learn a lot of the technical, pragmatic left brain stuff, even with doing music, that has made me appreciate what goes into when you open a plugin and all the stuff that's happening behind the user interface. Like, it's really amazing, and it's just made me very appreciative of it. So
Yeah,
um
it's great, man. It's great.
yeah, but like I said, like, I grew up a gamer. I didn't think I would get into this. So, like, no, I don't know what. Yeah, we don't know what's gonna happen, but I can honestly say, probably speaking for the team, I mean, we're all like holding out hope that we get a publisher. But in the meantime, I think it is a testament not only to the IP, the game that we're doing is really cool, and having Sylvan and Mickey, the people who created it, there helps. But it's also a testament to the leadership, of you as the leader of the studio, because you come with a very, you always keep it like glass half full, and are very honest. You're very communicative, which I think are really good qualities that anyone, I would hope everyone would have, but especially if someone is leading a team. You never want to feel like you get left in the dark, and you don't want to feel like you get misled. So I appreciate you being very honest about things, but also being very much like taking into account what people feel and think, and just assessing everyone's needs.
No, absolutely. So I think that for everybody out there that is actually thinking to actually make a studio and all that stuff, I like being in AAA. One of the things that I've seen, and I think I've said it here before, is that like you feel a little bit like a little bit of like a small piece of a massive machine, and you don't really have a saying, and
Yep.
half of the time you don't know what's going on in the studio. You don't know why you're making the stuff that you're doing. You don't know why like people are deciding the things that they are deciding, and it becomes a little bit disconcerting because after a while you have a voice, you want to express yourself, you want to
Right.
like have a saying on how the game kind of turns out in one way or the other. And
Right.
for me, it was very much about like maybe if I'm a lead, I'll be able to have a bigger saying. Maybe if I'm a
Right.
director,
Right.
I'll get to have a bigger saying. And I was those things. And you do have to get to have a bigger saying, but it's never to the point that you can be truly creative. It never really feels like it's your own. You
Mm-hmm.
basically, especially if you work on an existing IP,
Mm-hmm.
you are tweaking things. You're not really creating things. Like things have been set up and players expect certain things. So you have to tweak them in a way that it doesn't really disrupt the gameplay too much, which it makes complete sense.
Right.
However, it's not the best creative outcome for anybody that is like us, Kyle, right? So I feel like we are in the best case scenario here,
Yeah.
even though it's really hard because we don't have a publisher. I'm back because we don't have a publisher, but it's creatively it's the best. Like I never had so much fun in my gaming career. It feels amazing. Like
That
because
says
it's
a lot
endless.
because you worked on some huge IPs, man. So
Yeah,
that's
yeah,
that's
yeah.
that's saying a lot. Seriously.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's like I wish I could like transplant some of this stuff that I've seen in the
Right.
AAA domain. I mean, it's wonderful. I'm not saying to anybody that wants to get into AAA that it's bad. It's wonderful, but there is creatively there is challenges, and like I much prefer to go through this pain, even like the lobby stuff that I just mentioned. Is I like genuinely had to present our game in the corner, in a floor, on the floor, on a corner, in a lobby next to a toilet to a publisher, because there was no place to sit, and
Right.
and I made it work. And the publisher was interested, and they came back to us, and all that stuff didn't work out in the end, but they were actually very impressed. So, but I much rather do that than and be creative and work with people like yourselves and every like yourself, Kyle, and everybody else in the team, than to actually not be creative. Even though you're getting money, you're actually
Right.
getting like really well paid, and you actually get to say, I work on these things or for this
Right.
studio.
Right.
You don't feel fulfilled, or I didn't feel fulfilled. I should say, I should talk for myself, but I didn't
Right.
really feel fulfilled. Yeah.
No, well, one thing that has come up even in this conversation is you always say, if it's not fun, I don't want to do it. And I think that is the thing
Yep.
that has maintained the, I guess, the morale with the team. Like people genuinely are excited about what, again, we're working on. So I think, that has kept, you would think that people, especially the more time that goes on, and with us just bootstrapping, I'm actually shocked that the team has done the opposite of what I suspected could have
Yeah.
happened, where people are like, man, this has been cool, but it's not happening fast enough, so I'm out. But it's been the opposite. People have been like, it's like a role playing game. People have been joining the party, like or like Lemmings or something, or like Katamari. Remember that game where you're picking up shit like as you keep
Katamari
going
the
on?
Mafia. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
absolutely.
So
Yeah,
yeah. This is like Katamari Damacy. Like we've just been picking up
yeah.
more and more people, and the ball has been getting bigger. So that I guess when it's time, and I think it is just a matter of timing, that the right publisher and situation comes along. I'm actually like relieved that you're like, as opposed to like, yo, I know we just need the money, and I know we're gonna have to compromise our creativity, but fuck it, like let's just take the
Do
money.
this.
I'm glad you're not doing that, and
No.
and actually like being picky and
Yeah.
thinking about this cerebrally,
Yeah, like I feel like so more than being picky in terms of like we just think we are too good or anything like that, but it's mostly like I'm a big believer in everything happens for a reason.
Mm,
And I feel like nowadays, especially nowadays, talking with other friends that of studios that have been closed because of 2023 and 2024 have been
mm,
horrible. A massive amount of studios have been closed. A lot of friends that I knew actually are without a job, incredibly talented, no
mm,
jobs. And, no point, not pointing fingers or anything, but most people can see by the news that most of these closures normally come from massive AAA publishers, kind of like making things a little bit more leaner. And as
mm,
a, as a result, they have to close studios. So a bunch of talent goes out the door. You
mm,
probably saw the stuff that happened with Tango GameWorks, right? Like
mm-hmm,
they created one of the best games, with lots of awards on Hi-Fi Rush, and he still was closed. So
mm-hmm.
all of that to say that as soon as you get money as a publisher, from a publisher, as a games developer, because there's money involved, you kind of have to actually kind of like start doing things a little bit as they want. Some of them are more heavy-handed than others, but they are paying you to make a good game. And if they don't think it's a good game, a lot of the times actually things get changed to kind of help please them, so they
Mm,
actually can continue giving you money to make more games or to make more of the game. And this becomes like the conundrum, right? Because you, as a studio, as a developer, you should be the ones that know how to make this game to the likes of that gamers want, right? But publishers a lot of the time have heavy hand, and they actually want changes to happen on the game that you may or may not agree with, and you have to still make them because they are paying you the money.
right.
So here at Proxima right now, the blessing that we have, because we don't have any money, even though it's hard,
Yeah,
we
but
get
yeah,
to you get to make all the creative decisions, and there's nobody to tell us no, like you
right,
cannot do it that way, or do it more that way, or why
right,
don't you have multiplayer, or why don't you have like a pink costume on your game, right? Like things like that are things that are not happening in our games because we are making those decisions amongst ourselves, and as long as the
right,
team is happy, we're good.
right.
And there's a certain freedom with that. So for me, it's important that even if we do get the money, let's say tomorrow we have 20 different offers from different publishers. For me, it's very important to find a publisher that is like a partner that really believes in the team, really believes in the IP, really believes in
Mm,
what we're doing. Because the more we have a publisher that way, the more we actually can actually tell them, look, we're going to do it this way. And they believe in us and they trust us. And then we can do it that way and then prove it to them that we are the studio that they actually kind of like wanted to support. Right. So that's the mentality that I have right now. So yeah.
well, in a perfect world, I'm curious, like, because one of the things that we talked about, particularly in our weekly meeting yesterday, was the fact that you think the trend now is obviously less AAA, more AA or indie or whatever. And actually,
Yeah.
can you? I've always wondered, like, is there a distinction between indie and AA? Like,
Yeah, there
okay,
is. Yeah. So it's actually interesting. Double A is a term that actually came up recently, right? Like I remember, like amongst developers, we used to say like, well, double A, if you will, but it was always been in triple A,
right,
and
right.
then what's in between, which didn't had a name before.
Ah, okay,
Yeah,
okay,
but like so years ago, early 2000s when I started, like 2009, I want to say
right.
2010, 11. There was actually the opposite of what's happening right now, which is interesting, which is like if you were indie and if you were AAA, you'll be safe. But if you are caught in the middle, you'll be squeezed out of the market. And one of the studios, the first studio that I actually started working on, called Eurocom, they were what's considered nowadays a double A game. So
Hmm.
they used to work in games like the Olympics or Rio, which is a movie, animated movie. They'll be like,
Right.
Rio the game, right? Or Ice Age the game. I worked on that.
Oh,
Ice Age the game. But
okay,
they also would do games like we did a reboot of GoldenEye with Daniel Craig, which
okay,
for the Nintendo Wii was
okay.
actually quite successful. Or I worked on a Dead Space, right? For the Wii, and that was also quite successful. So that's why they were just in between, right? It was not
Right.
like boom huge, but it was not indie either. And they were squeezed out, and everybody thought, okay, what's in the middle? This double A market is dead, and you cannot be caught in the middle. So either do very small
Mm,
games or very big games. Now, the term that comes at SAA now is because, and it's going to happen more and more, I can see it, is because a lot of people like myself, so I left when things were still okay, but a lot of developers out there, because we've been to the grind many years of working on different AAA studios and stuff and all that, you get to a point that you kind of go different studios, same thing, different studios, same thing, and you might get more pay and more kudos and better studio, but you kind of end up doing the same thing, and you all ends up, the essence of this all is basically is circle of life. You end up wanting what you wanted at the beginning, which is creativity. Like you started this whole thing. When I started animation, it was like, I want to be the most creative animator ever. What's the best
mhm.
idea? And you were doing it in your bedroom, and you were doing the best you could, having big dreams and stuff. But you were the most creative at that point. You just didn't know it then. You just wanted that job. You wanted to get paid. You want to get in the industry.
Of course.
And then full circle later, when you have that job, when you have the industry, when you have the kudos, when you have the CV that looks, or the resume that looks amazing, you want to go back to the same, that Harvey in the bedroom, kind of like creating the animations and being as creative as possible. So how can I get that again? And a lot of people that, like yourself, Kyle, myself, that just want the creativity, that creative freedom, they
Right.
find it by basically surrounding themselves with mates and people that they actually know that are all equally as talented as them, and then creating their own studio. And for a fact, and I know for this of Proxima at least, you don't want to go to a 500 team AAA game because, like to me at least, when I was in those studios, you never feel like you're connected. You half of the time you don't know who's working on what because the team is so big that you
Right.
just like maybe 10 people around you, that but everybody else is like, I guess he's an artist, I guess he's a coder, I don't know who they are, do they work here? That's the feeling that you have when you have 500 plus people working on one game. Now 30 people, 50 people, that's cool, right? 20 people, we get to know each other, it's like a little bit of a family, right? And the studios that I worked in that actually were smaller, that's where I had the most fun. So for me, that's where it kind of like resided, like that
Right.
double A world where the team, it's not just myself making the game just by myself, but I want to create with other people that I consider my mates. And let's just make the best game possible. That's where I like to live in. And this is why we're here as well.
The reason why I even asked about, well, and I appreciate you clarifying that, because I've always wondered that, like, like Proxima, are we indie or are we double A? Like, I know we have a lot of people with triple A, like yourself and so many other people with triple A
Yeah.
experience coming down to starting a studio that's essentially like bootstrapped from the ground. So I thought we kind of wavered
Yep.
kind of in between a little bit, like experience of a triple A, but starting from the ground up and approaching it from
Well,
indie.
grown up. Yeah.
Yeah, but the reason why I asked what I asked is that because I one of the things that you said yesterday that kind of resonated with me, and I even just been paying attention, I guess the trend of games that have been released lately. Like I know PlayStation had the State of Play, and it's been so we talked about it, like backlash, good and bad for the Concord game, and people were a little bit
Yeah. Yeah.
disappointed that it basically looks like an Overwatch kind of
Mm.
vibe. It looks really cool, and there's some really cool, unique things that they're trying to integrate in the game. But I guess, and I speak now as a guy who isn't able to do Helldivers and Destiny and stuff with my friends as much because of parenthood and just other life responsibilities. I really appreciate like solo campaigns and even shorter games. And so the fact that we're making a game that I'm excited about it because it's not only something I get to work on, but this is something I would genuinely play too. It excites me, and I'm curious. Like, do you think that trend is going to stay? Where people are going to want more solo campaign stuff, as well as shorter times, or what? Or do you think it's just the trend right now? Like, it's just been too much of the other, so people are looking for an alternative.
Yeah. Oh man, that's a great question. So to me, I feel like I believe like things normally go around in circles, right? Like
Right,
fashion is that
cycles.
way, and
Right,
most things cycles, right?
right.
Like just a few years ago, dressing up like Fresh Prince of Bel Air, it would have been super cheesy. Now everybody's doing it,
Yeah, it's very true. That
and
that's yeah.
right, and New Balance used to be cheesy back in the day. Now they're cool again.
Now
Like they
they're
used to be
cool
dad
again.
shoes. Now they're cool.
Yeah.
So I think things go around in circles. I think the backlash that games like Concord is getting is mainly because of fatigue, right? I do think that the game, I think, is going to be great. I think it's going to be really cool. It's going to be fun and probably going to be made of like the utmost quality as well. It's a Sony studio. I'm pretty sure they're putting lots of money into it. They have lots of talent. So
Hmm.
100% is going to be a great game. I think it's just people are kind of tired of having similar things coming up all the time. And I also think that there's only so much attention people can give to any one online game. And normally you have your main game, right? You either playing, I don't know, Destiny or Call of Duty or something like that. And then that's where you hang out with your friends because that's the game that you like. And now you
Right.
might dabble on another one for a little bit because it's the new thing, but then you come back to the main one.
Right.
So there's like, I think the online multiplayer game is always going to stay here. It's going to be great. But I do think that people are realizing now more than ever that the way we had it when we were kids, because I'm also 44 this year, Kyle's 45, obviously, like, we get into the old man age.
Yeah. Midlife, as
But
my dad told me. I was like, midlife is 44. He's like, dude, that's if you live
yeah,
close to 90, that's a good life. And I was like, yeah, I guess I am in midlife. I don't know. Anyway.
crazy, right? Yeah, I was actually thinking about that the other day. I was like, midlife, it's crazy. But at the same time, I do think that people are realizing how good we had it back in the day, which I
Hmm.
love it because like I'm getting to an age that I'm like, oh, games back in the day. I'm getting nostalgic. I'm thinking about
Right.
the Parappa the Rappers and the Jet Set Radios and all these games that we played, and it was like a single player experience. And even back then, and we talked about it here, there was no like there were games were not boxed in into a genre. It was very much like, what is Jet Set Radio? It's just a game that is fun, right? Or what is Tony Hawk? It's just a skating game. That's it. But there was no genres per se. Now everything needs to fit within a genre. Like, is it RPG? Is it JRPG?
Is it
There's
a
always a box that you
Metroidvania,
have to
like a
fit
platformer? Right.
the Metrovania. Yeah, so I think that it kind of stifles creativity because you're trying to make a game that looks like another game because it needs to fit in this other box. While back in the
Right.
day, we like, let's create this mechanic because it's fun instead of actually just being like making a game that actually fits a certain formula.
Hmm.
So all that to say, I think because people are trying to appreciate how cool games were back in the day, there's now more than ever retro consoles. People carry their retro consoles to play the Sonics and the Marios from back in
Right.
the day. So I think it's kind of bringing back this idea that games are used to be like either a single player experience or a multiplayer on the couch experience. So either do it by yourself and having fun, or you
Right.
have your friends with you right now, and actually you're having fun with your friends playing the same game that you played by yourself, like I don't know, Mario 64 or like GoldenEye, right? That's a good,
Right.
the golden
Right.
child of
Right.
couch co-op, right? And I think people dismissed that for so many years. Like so many publishers, like there was publishers that actually said like single player games are dead. Like we are gonna do just multiplayer, and that's it. Um, like I think the most gamers out there probably always appreciated like single player games.
Hmm.
Every time that anybody said single play like multiplayer games are dead, then a God of War comes along and just shake things up, or a
Right.
Spider-Man game comes along and everybody's like, damn, this is the best. And then the other thing is, most games of the year, if you think about it, are always, most of the time, 90% of the time, they are always single player games. Like, Baldur's Gate just won it last year. Like Hades won it a few years back. It Takes Two won it a few years before then.
Right.
So they are all single player experiences because I think those are the ones that actually stay in your mind. Those are
Right.
the ones that actually have a lasting impact. So it's almost like watching a good movie, right? The ones that actually are really considered classics are the ones that kind of like stay in your psyche and you cannot stop thinking about it. Multiplayer is fun to have, is good fun to have with your friends, and you
Hmm.
remember the experience because you enjoy it with your friends. So Battlefield, I used to play Battlefield a lot, Battlefield 1 and Battlefield 5. And I remember the experience that I had with my mates. But it was not this one-on-one experience that is like you are observing and you are experiencing, and it's like, wow, this was amazing, life-changing. So I think that that is coming back, and I'm so happy that it's coming back because I always thought that was missing for the longest time, especially when I was working on multiplayer games. I always thought, like, what about single player games? People don't give them enough credit.
Yeah. I I personally, like I mentioned just now, like solo games, so like one player games. That's why I'm like, and I'll say this for our next episode because I really want your insight and just like your opinion on the backlash of Assassins, the new Assassin's Creed being announced,
Yeah,
and everyone like
true.
going crazy over Yasuke, the Black Samurai, and I got so many
I know.
opinions and thoughts about that
Yeah,
too,
we need
but
to talk about it.
yeah, we can say that for the next episode. But I guess just to end off before we wrap this up, well, one, it feels good to be back doing the show again. Like I look forward to this because it's just it's just catching up with a friend, but obviously also someone I'm doing work with. But
Yeah.
I would like to end it since we're talking about like playing games. Obviously, what have you been playing? I know you've been in the midst of a move because if anyone
Oh,
looks closely at your
yeah.
background, they'll notice like what happened to all the stuff you had set up.
Exactly. So lately, unfortunately, I haven't been playing much.
Okay.
So the last thing that I played was so BAFTA Awards had just happened, and blessed to be being able to be part of the BAFTA animation judging panel,
Okay.
which is really really cool. So super psyched that Hi-Fi Rush won it. So I was playing the games that was basically part of that panel, right? And so I was playing a lot of Hi-Fi Rush, and I was playing a lot of what's the name? The Remedy game that came out. What's his name? Has a name of a character. It's a horror game. Alan
Uh,
Wake. That's it.
Alan Wake. Alan Wake
Alan
2.
Wake.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Alan Wake 2. So I was playing a lot of that, and then basically I had to pack up everything and start this move. So now we in this house. We've been here for a week or two, and I need to get my consoles up, plugged in, and all that stuff. And I
Right.
only will have the mindset to play again whenever this stuff is
I
organized
get
and
it.
back in order.
First
Yeah.
things first, yeah. My past weekend, you mentioned retro games, and I was just laughing because I was like, "Wow, he's like reading my brain." I spent this past weekend. My daughters, on the weekend since they're home, kind of dominate like our main TV and are usually like playing the Switch. They're playing this funny game that I don't know if it's a way to let me know that they want a pet. So my youngest is really wants a cat. My oldest wants a dog, but my youngest was like found this game called what is it called? Little Kitty Big City. It's a really fun game.
I heard that. I heard it
Yeah.
was a lot of fun. Absolutely.
Yeah, so I kind of been watching them play through that and like it's really cool. Like it's a, indie game, but it's cool because like you said it's so different and unique. It's a one player experience, but they both take turns helping one another like try this out, go there and go that. So while they're doing that, I'm in the back and playing on my phone emulator. I played Bionic Commando, the old NES game that I never beat
With the
when I
grappling
had.
hook.
Yes, yes, yes. Yep. Bionic Commando with trying to find what is it? Super Joe was the name of the character you are or you're trying to
Mm,
find or whatever. So I had never beaten it because I realized how hard that game is. So shout out to
mm.
who will be coming on the show in the future. My music partner Megaran told me about this app called Delta. It's an emulator that you can download emulations from ranging from NES, I think, all the way up to GameCube or maybe even PlayStation, and play them on your phone. So I was just playing
Amazing.
Bionic, and you can do save states and freeze the game. So whenever I feel like I'm about to go to a part where I could easily die, like jump on spikes or my grappling hook doesn't like connect, I save it. So I spent the
Yeah.
weekend playing through that, and it was so fun. But it also was like it made me realize how hard games were back in the day. Like they were hard as
100%.
hell, man.
Hard as hell, man. Like I actually talking about that. We need to talk about it in the next episode. But I bought
Oh man.
a pocket analog or an analog pocket. Have you seen that analog
No, I've
pocket?
not seen that. There's so many of those things
No.
out there. So
Oh
you gotta
man,
send me a link.
I will, and it's the same. It's the same. They finally have safe states. They call it,
Okay.
and
Yes.
I
Yes.
was playing Super Mario. I forget the name. Wonderland,
Okay.
Wonderworld. I forgot the name. But I never beat that game as well because I kept dying after 5 lives, and you have to go
Right.
right to the beginning, even though you're in the
To the
middle of the game at
beginning.
this point.
Yes.
And I was like, I was so like, so now I'm like, cheating
Well, I mean,
by
we
actually
we
saving
deserve it.
things.
Come on, man. Like, yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah, yeah, awesome. Well, you know, just to wrap up, man, we're back. We will next time we talk to you, we can talk more about. Obviously, I mentioned earlier before, Assassin's Creed. There's been a lot of stuff that's happened over the last 6 months since we seen you, but I think it was very much pertinent upon us to talk about what we have been up to, as opposed to just like what's been happening in the world of gaming. So we can open it up a little bit more next episode. And we have some guests in the works internally and externally. And we're just back, which I think continuity is the key. So I don't look forward to any more hiatuses. So
Yep.
that being said, we play games for the gamers. We make them for the gamers. This is for the gamers. So until next episode, y'all. K Murdoch, Harvey Newman, Proxima Studios. We will see you all.
Peace.
Peace.
See you later.